stung by a dang bee on the way. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're ready for another action-packed video with the old Honda Express here. It ain't that action-packed. Shut up, I'm trying to make a video. It'll be fine. Whatever. Now, if you missed the last video, basically threw a carb at it, threw some gas at it, new spark plug, fixed up the wire, and fixed up some other odds and ends. Headlight, tail light, stuff like that. And ended up taking it for its first ride. And it was okay, but I want more. Of course you do. You damn kids can't leave well enough alone. So don't mind all this mess. This is all just temporary for now until I kind of get everything sorted. And yeah, we'll go from there. The first thing I ran into that was kind of limiting me last video was something I actually didn't notice. And if you guys actually get this same carb, it's something to look out for. I'll get this carb popped off in a second and I'll show you exactly what I did to remedy it. But you can see this bracket bolts to the intake. And obviously the carb bolts to the intake. Well, right back here is a little captured nut or welded nut to this bracket. And that was actually hitting the back side of the carb. Now in the last video, I talked about rejetting this carb for being a bigger carb. And that was in my initial install and, kind of tuning that I figured out I needed some more fuel. Now, what I didn't realize was that was actually hitting the side of the carb and not letting this side of the base of the carburetor seat all the way. So I had a big old air leak right back here. I told you. Hey, what can I say? We're not all perfect. And so basically what I did was I just took a little rotophile cleanup tool and just ground a little bit of the backside of this carburetor to clearance that. Now I'd rather modify this carburetor. They're super cheap, easy to get, than have to modify these original parts that are not as easy to get. These things are actually so cheap that I went and bought a second one. In messing around, like I was saying in the last video, with the jetting and upsizing everything, in trying to get this thing dialed in, I realized that I had that air leak. Well, whoops, I realized after it was too late, and I had already bumped the jetting way up. So by the time I fixed it, now I'm running way too rich. No, I haven't found a jet kit for these repop carbs yet. If you guys have any clue, let me know. But basically what I did was just ordered a whole nother one. I figured it'd be good to have the hard parts and gaskets and everything laying around. And so I just took the main jet out of this thing, swapped it back into this carb. Not a problem, ready to go. Now another thing that got changed was I pulled the factory oil pump out. Now I don't know if this thing worked or not, but they're super common to fail, and the previous owner had actually blocked all these off, so who knows. Anyway, I've been running premix the whole time, and what I did was I went to the hardware store and just found a rubber plug that compresses into this hole that'll work just fine to seal that up. Now, I went the hard route. The only thing I could find at the hardware store was a 1-inch plug, and basically used my grinder to shave that thing down to 7/8. I don't know what the metric equivalent of this hole is. I suppose I could have measured this and went from there, but anyway, that will work just fine to seal that up. And no more problems, no more ugly mess there. Now I know I showed in the previous video that I had this muffler, and obviously I do have this muffler. I had bought this thinking that this was probably going to be the way that I go, and I still may. But what I did have was this old school DG pipe from back in the day that I had cut, welded, and fit on here. Now, don't judge me by my welds, and also don't judge me by the fact that this thing's broken about 20 times and I've had to weld it back together. It is what it is. So I went ahead and slapped that one on first, I really don't like the idea of cutting up my stock exhaust because it is in good shape and it works and it's quiet. So this thing may get shelved for now. If I get bored one of these days, I may play around with it. Maybe if I buy another, less nice exhaust that I feel okay with cutting the headpiece off of and welding onto here. But for now, we're gonna roll with this DG. So now with the carburetor basically back to stock jetting, what it came with anyway, the oil pump blocked off, so any potential air leaks there fixed up, and then obviously the exhaust. I think it's time to fire this thing up and at least see what it does. Better hurry. It's gonna start raining again. Oh yeah, I should probably put gas in it. Yeah, good enough. You can do it, little buddy, come on. Didn't like that. Oh yeah. Helps if you turn the gas on. Kids. Well, I may have went a little heavy on the oil, but, hey, whatever. I'd rather have too much than too little. This thing's still a little cold-blooded. Getting it started wants a lot of choke. I haven't done a whole lot of tuning since putting everything kind of back to stock. But, yeah, now that I've let it warm up for a little bit, should just fire right up. And I can take it down the road, see what this thing will do speed-wise. I imagine I'm going to pick up a little bit.
Bye-bye, Dad. Pork.
Alright, I'm curious what temp I'm at here. 280 on the jug. Yeah. Well, after taking it for a quick ride around and all that. I can tell that I'm better in some areas and I'm lacking in some areas. The top end is definitely better. I get to, 25, 26, 27, no problem. That seems to be about the top right now. And definitely takeoff, I lost a lot. So tuning on this carb is, I think, going to get me everything back. But I'm glad to see the pickup in top speed. So let's dive into a couple more things and see what we can pick up. It's not terrible, but I think we could fatten it up a little bit. All right, before we go too hog wild and like tuning and doing all that stuff, I really want to put this other head on. It's a lot higher compression than what this head is. When I get this one off, I'll show you what the difference is combustion chamber wise. But just a lot smaller combustion chamber internally, and I hope this thing gives us a little boost in performance. So I already went ahead and cleaned the mating surface up, got me a brand new head gasket for this thing, and we'll slap this on. Go. We'll clean this surface up a little bit, throw the new head on. There's a look at the two combustion chambers of this. You can see this is quite a big dish on this one. That one's a lot smaller, higher compression. Not a bad little swap for just finding one laying around. There we go, head ready to install. Now since this was off an old 2-speed with the weird choke assembly years ago, I went and just cut that off. Probably in hindsight should have left it, but it is what it is. I went through and kind of cleaned up my really bad job of doing that. So, whatever. Just start them finger tight. Now, I'm gonna cheese this a little bit because I don't have my torque wrench with me. That's at the shop. And, we'll just click of the elbow, right? I'll make sure I got these things just started by hand before I go ahead and send them with any power tools or anything. Don't want to cross thread them into the block. And I'm just going to do a final snug up here with the ratchet. Just kind of feel it by hand. These are pretty thin bolts, so not a lot of torque on these things. Surprisingly, for as much weight as hanging on them, you would think they would put a little heftier bolt in there, but whatever. Just going around hitting them with a crisscross pattern, just like you would any head on a car or truck, anything like that. And just kind of feeling the torque on them. Yeah, I think that ought to be good. Alright, one other trick I'm going to try here is actually kind of an old school hot rodder, race car, NASCAR trick. And it's called side gapping the spark plug. Now, hopefully you can see that, the difference. I just took one of the old plugs I had in just tuning. You just cut the strap off, and you actually take and gap it from the side here. You measure that gap instead of this gap. And set your gap here. That allows the flame to propagate forward instead of outward from the sides, like it would in a standard, traditional spark plug. Now, it's not some super high-end trick, but, when you're looking for every little bit you can get, it's not a bad thing to try. So I'm going to finish cleaning this one up a little bit. Usually I just take a little cutoff wheel, grind that down, a little tiny baby file, and just clean this up some. And then I'll reset the gap and throw this thing in. Not that it's good for a lot, but maybe it's good for a little bit. There we go. And there we go. I just got back from, a quick test ride. Got stung by a dang bee on the way. Right there. Right, so fast forward a few days, and after that last clip where I got the head put together and everything back in order, I really just kind of ran out of time for the day and had a few more things that I wanted to do to this thing, but really just didn't have time to make it into the video. So, off camera, a few things I've done. You can see the exhaust looks a little bit different. I realized that I had a crack in that head pipe. These things are pretty common for that over years of stress and bouncing around. It cracks that flange, and I really wanted to get that thing fixed up. So I went ahead, pulled it back off, welded it. While I was in there, I rewrapped it, I cleaned all the rust and everything off of it, and gave it a little coat of paint. It is what it is. Then on top of that, I made a little carb spacer out of just some 2-part epoxy. Gave that thing a few days to set up and cure, and that solved that issue of the carb being too close to the intake and just gets it out a little ways. And carb spacers, performance, right? This may sound silly too, but I put a new horn on. I like the old meep meep sound. Anyways, then on top of that, I've just been riding it a ton and just ever so slightly tweaking and tuning here and there. Now, unfortunately on this thing, I think I've reached its limit. It is just a little 50cc moped. It doesn't have a ton of power, and I'm not the skinniest guy on the planet. So hauling me around, I can't expect this thing to be just a rocket ship. I'll take what I can get. At the end of the day, this thing really isn't about going super fast and, all that stuff. Really, I just want it to be reliable, be a little bit fun, and, kind of just bring that nostalgia back, which it's definitely doing. In the few days I've been riding this thing, man, have I got a bunch of people commenting on it, checking it out, saying how cool it is, and they used to have one back in the day, and all those kind of things. And that's really what does it for me. I don't have to be doing 80 in this thing to have a good time. If I wanted to go faster, I could ride my motorcycle, or probably even my bicycle. But overall, it's just going to be a little bit of cleanup here and there, trying to make it as nice as I can make it, and just enjoying it. I'm really having a lot of fun riding this thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Maybe you learned a little bit. Maybe you can put some of this to use on yours. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this one. I appreciate you hanging out with me. We'll catch you next time. I'm gonna go ride this thing some more. Whoa!